Now, with that said, man, like I said, back-to-back heavyweight fights, we are now into the main event. This is such a tough fight to call for a lot of people, man, but let me break it down like this. When you talk about Ciryl Gane, you know, people are going to call him boring, people are going to call him this and that. When you neutralize a striker like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, take into consideration what Jairzinho has been able to do around that fight. Outside of Ngannou, the guy has been borderline flawless. And I broke down that Ngannou fight in a sense where, and it's what made me pick him against Augustus Sooky, is that he really was avoiding the first 3 shots. But what's the problem with Ngannou? If this man lands 1 in 5, you're a dead body. So that was the issue there. Just really moving too much head, tried to throw a leg kick, you know, tried to do too much. He should have literally ran against the cage to another direction, but obviously easy to say behind a mic sitting like this, but that was the only flaw we saw from him, and that really, you know, rang true for me in considering him one of the best heavyweights in the world still. He's just so precise with his strikes, he's calculative, and now, when you talk about his fight with Gane, eliminated everything that Jairzinho could throw at him. Jairzinho looked like a completely different fighter in that fight. It is what made people believe that Jairzinho might not be the fighter that people thought he was. That's how bad that fight went for him. And I don't think it has any... People are going to say he was trigger shy and all this stuff. No. Gane's footwork is insane for a heavyweight. Insane. Watch the way he walks forward against some guys. Guy doesn't walk normally. He switches stance. That's how good he is. It's insane to see that from a heavyweight, but he literally walks forward, switching into a powerful leg kick or powerful lead kick. So for me, those are the things that it's just so hard to get away from him. I mean, even the fact that he was a minus 250 favorite against a guy like Dontel Mays tells you how high he's come. I guarantee you, if that fight were to happen today for any reason, that's a minus 1,000. That's a minus 1,000 type of fight. And so you come out of that, UFC, just the record's pristine, man. Then you want to talk about the actual numbers. Let's break it down. The guy's elite, right? 69% striking defense with a 5.04 and 185 striking differential. Guy's throwing over 5 strikes and eating way less than 2. And he's got 100% takedown defense. He finished that Dontel Mays fight with a fucking... He finished that Dontel Mays fight with a heel hook. Like, I'm hard-pressed to figure out when I've seen a heavyweight be this versatile. That's the thing that's blowing me away about Ciryl Gane. And it's just so funny because of the lack of excitement and big-time knockouts and things like that. People are finding it so hard to talk about him. But, yo, understand that we could have a French showing. You know, Francis Ngannou spent a lot of time in the same, you know, areas of France back in the day. And if this ends up being the title fight to watch at heavyweight, I'm not upset. I can't wait for that fight to happen. I'm certain those two will find a way to fight each other sooner or later. But who is our boy Ciryl Gane taking on? Mr. Spoiler himself, Alexander Volkov, man. I'm thinking back to, like, all the fights I've seen him. There's a reason I got a black B shirt right there. You can't make mistakes against a guy who punches that hard. The only thing I've seen him do so poorly was get into a brawling range fight with a guy like Derek Lewis when he pretty much dominated the entire fight. You can guarantee that that's the one fight for Volkov that he thinks back and was like, I should have had that one. And it's just how Derek Lewis performs, right? He can get dominated for 2 rounds and comes back with something beautiful. After the Derek Lewis fight, we saw him take on Greg Hardy. Easy peasy. The Curtis Blaydes fight, that was an interesting one, right? I think a lot of people want to see that rematch. It was an absolute dominant performance from a wrestling perspective. But what was really cool about that fight was to see that, you know, Curtis Blaydes, such a well-versed wrestler, this guy had to try 25 times to take Volkov down and only landed 14 of those takedowns. So 14 for 25 is still pretty good at the UFC level, but what I'm getting at is Volkov, the ability to avoid it those other, 11 times makes a lot of sense to me in a fight where if Gane is finding any reason to take this fight to the ground and start to work in some BJJ, it's a great game plan. but Volkov is tough to take down. You know, that's the part that I'm really enjoying about both of these guys. 100% we said for Gane and 66% for Volkov, who actually maintains a 70% takedown accuracy. So if this fight even, you know, for any reason goes to the ground, it's going to be crazy exciting to see what they can do. You're going to have Gane working from the bottom with his great jiu-jitsu, but then you have Volkov landing these big strikes with his nice elbows coming down from the top. I mean, it's so tough to see where this fight can go because both guys have so many great ranges of ability to fight in different areas. And that's the beautiful thing about Ciryl Gane, right? As much as Alexander Volkov comes in at that 6'7" and fights really long, the reach advantage looks to be in Gane's favor by an inch. And he fights pretty long too, despite the 3-inch height disadvantage. So I'm curious to see how well Volkov is going to be able to push that pace. Because if Gane is able to use his pace, use his game plan, I think that just like everybody else that fights him, you're going to make a striker very frustrated. And that's where you're going to see if that 70% takedown accuracy for Volkov comes into play, because that's what makes these guys so elite. Is it just seems like wherever the fight can go, they both have the ability to really put up a fight. And it's just so rare to see that in the heavyweight division, which makes this fight so exciting. You talk about the Alistair Overeem and the Walt Harris fights. Ended them, right? Like, Volkov is on a different level in terms of overall skill, and I just really like what we can see from both these guys executing some ground game as well. I have to go with Gane as the favorite. 8-0 versus 33-8 type of records, but from what I've seen from Gane, you know, I don't think I've been this excited for a heavyweight. You know, if Junior Dos Santos is my favorite heavyweight of all time, if not one of my favorite fighters, if not my favorite fighter of all time, Cain Velasquez and him, that was what made me fall in love. To watch that culmination of both those guys fight each other was everything I didn't want and wanted to see. And I've not been this excited for a heavyweight since those days when with Gane just looking the way he does. It's just, you have such an athlete that comes in weighing the way he does. It's just such a fun fight to watch. So again, despite the huge difference in previous fights, I'm going with Gane as the favorite. I don't think it can be by much, man. If this is a -200 favorite, just for the fun's sake, go bet Volkov before this line comes back down to reality. But let's check it out. Okay, so Ciryl Gane is a -150, still hovering in that area. Some guys are like, nah, we'll give it to you for a -165, -160 in that range. But Volkov, pretty much stuck, open as a +125 dog, and it's now sitting at +120, +130 range. I really like this fight, man. I think that if it wasn't surrounded by so many big fights, and also fights from other promotions, it would be talked about so much more. This is setting up a massive title picture down the line in the UFC. You have guys like Chris Daukaus and Tom Aspinall on the outside looking in. We just talked about my guy Sergey Spivak, who is very much the dark horse on his way in. You know, it's just so crazy to see that the UFC heavyweight division is getting such an influx of talent. Some of the older guys like Volkov really hitting his stride. So, I mean, I think this one is very much a pick-em because the game plans definitely suggest it can go either way. But, you know, I'm going to actually lay my pick out right now with Gane. I don't think it changes. I just think the technical side of his game and his ability to avoid strikes is just going to be too much for Volkov, who we've seen make those slight mistakes here and there, especially in 5-round fights. So that's UFC Vegas 30. If I didn't get you hyped for that, nobody will. The fights on here are absolutely insanely fun. So many candidates for fight of the night. Exciting guys like Moicano, Shavkat Rakhmonov, like Yancy Medeiros and Damir Hadzovic starting off the card. Like, you cannot go wrong here. So with that said, picks as always will be up on Instagram. We'll try to get them up around breakfast time since fights start at 1 o'clock. Don't forget that, 1 p.m. East Coast time. As always, hit us up, like, subscribe, comment below. Let us know what you think. So excited. Keep it rolling. Peace.